pod bay doors, please, Hal.
Look, it's Jay Leno in his first big movie role.
Stop that garbage bag!
You may not remember it
Get him out!
because it never made it to the theaters.
Oh, I am shocked.
And there are some good reasons why.
Gee, I'd love to hear the whole story.
And HBO is about to show every one of them.
Hey, turn that shit off!
Jay Leno in Collision Course.
Hey, with the monkeys.
Collision Course premieres Sunday, November 22nd on HBO.
The pod bay doors are open. Thank you very much for joining us once again. I'm your host, Doug Heller, film critic and film historian for TalkMovieToMe.com. Here as always, beaming in from all the way around the world, the globe, coming in to see the finest in Detroit. Jerry Dean Roberts, film critic for ArmchairCinema.com, ArmchairOscars.com, HoweVerThinkingOscars.wordpress.com. How you doing, Jerry?
Hey, I don't get paid to be civilized. How far
you're welcome.
have we fallen? Where have we come to in the year 2020? How far have we come that you and I have carved out an afternoon to discuss an action buddy comedy starring Pat Morita and Jay Leno?
Well, listen, it's not every day you get to discuss the entire film career of someone in one shot.
You know, in a year that includes a pandemic and a nightmare clown circus of a presidential election, we have fallen to Collision Course.
I have chosen Collision Course 1989.
Filmed in 1987, released in 1992.
Well,
There's a storied history here.
Directed by Louis Teague, the mastermind and sure and steady hand behind Cujo, the Jewel of the Nile.
He's one of those
Time
Hollywood.
Tracks.
He's one of those Hollywood directors for hire.
Oh yes,
Like, yeah, he's one of those directors for hire, like Raja Gosnell or Brian Levant or somebody like that. You know, that just they got hired when Hollywood needed a director and couldn't find a decent one that would lower themselves to the material like this.
Right. Yeah, this is
Collision Course.
This is Collision Course. This is Jay Leno's one and only film.
Mm-hmm. There's a reason for that.
Thankfully. And poor, ridiculously talented and underutilized Pat Morita.
When you picked this, did you know how racist this movie was going to be?
I did not.
As I was telling you off mic just before this, you know, take a shot every time somebody says Jap in this movie. It's horrendous.
It is pervasive and casual, and I didn't realize. Basically, what this is a more offensive, less entertaining precursor of Rush Hour.
It is Rush Hour, essentially.
Yes, but without the occasional entertainment that film offers.
Or Jackie Chan.
Or Jackie Chan. Or, you know.
But I'll say this. There's good and bad here. The bad is it doesn't have Jackie Chan. The good is it doesn't have Chris Tucker. I mean,
yeah, Chris Tucker annoys me a lot.
Chris Tucker annoys everybody. He comes out of mothballs like every 7 years to do something. Just annoys people and goes right back into hiding again.
But he's still better than Jay Leno in Collision Course.
Okay. Well, let me put it this way. The difference between Jay Leno in this movie and Chris Tucker in Rush Hour is to this degree. I didn't actively, ragingly need Jay Leno to leave the screen. I didn't actively need him to leave the screen because I was wanting to punch my screen. Chris Tucker is a different story.
I'll tell you what, I've gone through different stages of how much I like or dislike Chris Tucker, and I've gotten to a point where I'm okay with him for a little bit in a movie.
Small doses.
Sometimes I quite like him. He was wonderful in Jackie Brown.
For a minute.
That's all the longer he's in it.
That's all he's in it.
He gets killed, but
he gets about the same screen time as he does in Silver Linings Playbook.
Yeah.
But
and he delivers just as good a performance.
In Rush Hour 2, they wound him up and let him go, and for 2 hours he never shut up. And he's just this irritating, screaming guy. And it's like, please, I can't take any more of you. Please leave the screen just for a minute.
But again, I would take that over the ridiculous racism in Collision Course.
I don't know. There was some racism in Rush Hour 2.
Yeah, well.
Just in a different direction.
Yes. The trouble with the Rush Hour movies is that they were directed by Brett Ratner.
Yeah. Another Hollywood director for hire.
Yeah, but he has much worse things in his closet.
Can I say, when I saw this, I was, this is the best movie of 1985 to come out in 1989.
Right.
You can tell it was made 3 or 4 years earlier, because this does not feel like it was made in 1989.
No, this definitely, this feels Reagan.
It feels very much like they were trying to do a Beverly Hills Cop.
Yes.
I got a lot of Fletch from this, especially the music and the action scenes.
Oh my God, the music.
Yeah. This movie opens with a love song. I'm not kidding. It opens with a love song and like 2.5 minutes of second unit flyover shots of Detroit.
That terrible power ballad.
Yeah.
That opens this, and they go the whole way through this song.
Oh, they play the whole song.
And just the first image is supposed to be a car hood.
And it doesn't connect with what comes next.
Well, no, it's just this animated car hood that has Pat Morita, Jay Leno, and then a crashing sound effect, and then Collision Course on this thing that probably looks like a car. When they in the 15 minutes that it existed in widescreen,
right,
before it got cropped, and then that print got lost forever,
right,
because the one I found is not in widescreen,
but it cuts, and then it goes to this weird 80s power ballad, and like I said, 2.5 minutes of second unit shots. And it's weird. It's like and then we're introduced to Jay Leno in a scene I completely do not understand. First of all, now this does fit because if you have Jay Leno in a nice sports car, okay, that fits. Because Jay Leno is a sports car guy.
Mm-hmm.
So why not, instead of having him be a cop, let him be a sports car guy? Just have a movie about cars instead of being this stupid plot. Because he knows his stuff. The thing about this is that it starts with this. You don't know he's a cop at the beginning of the movie, and there's this scene where he's sitting at a red light.
Right. He challenges a really, really souped up car to a drag race.
But the conversation they have is strange. He says, What's that station you're listening to?" It says something about, you can't get this station.
Right, and he goes, "Well, why not?" And he goes, "Well, it's a black station." He goes, "Oh, my ears can't tune to the frequency." They're like, "That's right." Okay.
And then he asks him for their pizza?
Yeah, how about a slice of pizza? And then he decides to drag race them for $20.
Yeah.
Bear in mind, this is broad daylight.
In Detroit.
In Detroit. They're downtown. Like,
right.
I don't know how this was supposed to work, but so they start getting pulled over. He waves them off. He starts tearing into the two uniformed patrol officers.
Hold on, because this has to be mentioned. He and the two black guys in the other car, are chased down by cops. And they don't pull over the black guys.
Right.
This is movie fantasy, folks.
From the 80s, which is really not on brand.
In Detroit, again.
It's really not on brand.
And
so he's saying that this was all part of a bust, a drug bust.
Yeah.
And which is obvious horseshit.
Yeah. It's to get her number.
Yeah, right, because he's trying to get out of the fact that, yes, indeed, he was a police officer who was drag racing in the middle of the friggin' day.
That makes no sense. Because
No,
the rest of the movie is not about this.
No, it has nothing to do with anything, except that it establishes that he's a cop, and that he's kind of a jerk.
And this weird, I guess, running joke in which he keeps getting girls' phone numbers by shaking them down.
Well, yeah, he keeps going, oh, if you just give me your home phone number, then I'll be able to follow up with you on this. It's like,
she's a cop. She would know better. But then again, I think she's clued into what he's doing.
Oh, she knows what's happening.
Yeah, she knows what's happening.
Her partner is a little dim-witted, but she knows. As soon as he says, "Could I have your home phone number?" she's like, okay, this wasn't...
yeah.
There's no DEA on the other side of the bridge.
No.
There's no feds. There's just... he was...
So he's a cop breaking the law.
Right, and that's the first image we get of him.
Right, that's the first thing we get of him. And this doesn't come up again.
Yeah, not really. I mean, his ethics are called into question on numerous occasions.
But not called on the carpet, because nobody ever really pulls him down for this. Nobody ever really calls him out for this.
No, I mean, it's the same as, him just deciding that probable cause is, I want to go into this house, so I'll make anything up to say that I was supposed to go in, because, yeah.
And hey, Tokyo, it's like, we're having this conversation, then all of a sudden Tokyo. Like,
Right. It just cuts over, and we're introduced to Pat Morita's character, whose name is Fujitsuka Natsuo. Fujitsuka Natsuo, which no
who
one in the
is
movie can pronounce.
there's a now I want to tell you this. We were half an hour into this movie before I even figured out what this movie was about.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's about 30 minutes. And I'm like, I do not know what this movie is about. He gets called into his boss's office, and his boss is played by Soon-Tek Oh, which in the 80s, if you needed if you needed an Asian man
Yeah.
to persistently be pissed off,
Yes.
you got Soon-Tek Oh.
Yeah.
And there's not a scene in this movie that he's in that he's not pissed off.
No.
Let me tell you about Soon-Tek Oh. Okay. Soon-Tek Oh kept showing up on MASH. Okay. He showed up as a Chinese soldier who who surrendered and turned himself over to Hawkeye and BJ.
Mm-hmm.
The following season, he played a North Korean soldier who surrendered himself to Hawkeye and BJ. And I think Soon-Tek Oh I think he's Japanese.
He's technically Korean
Is he
and
Korean?
Japanese. He was born in Korea, but it was when it was under Imperial Japanese rule.
Okay.
So
It's like the same story. They just changed his nationality.
yeah.
Korean American. Okay.
And you know, I mean, he was the dad in Mulan in the animated one, right?
Yes. Yeah. But
The sensei in Beverly Hills Ninja, obviously his crowning achievement.
no, his crowning achievement was MASH. He was the
Which
villain
time?
in one of the he was the villain in one of the missing in action pictures.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he was.
And
in
that movie's even more racist than this.
He was in Highlander. All right.
Where in Missing in Action he played a man who was Vietnamese.
Americans don't care.
They just kept hopping him all over. I mean,
Regrettably. Well, I mean, it's the same way that Anthony Quinn can play every single...
can play Mexican and Greek and...
every single white adjacent race and has there's a whole bunch.
They used to do this all the time.
Oh yeah.
You know, I mean,
But-
if you were of a foreign, or if you were of a non-white background,
If you were Asian and they needed an Asian, they didn't care if you were Korean, Chinese, Vietnamese, Japanese, Filipino. If you could play, you got cast. And if you were
Pat Morita was on it. He was on MASH as a Korean.
Yeah. So that's just how things have been, and it continued. It still does, because if you watch the controversy that surrounded Steven Spielberg's Memories of a Geisha,
Memoirs.
or the Memoirs of a Geisha. Well, he didn't direct it, but
He produced it.
because they used primarily Chinese actresses for Japanese characters.
Right.
And it's like, can't you find Japanese women to play this role?
I know they're out there.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. There's at least 2 that you could put in your movie.
Right.
Um,
But this
So,
movie, honestly,
now,
see if you can explain this plot to
okay,
me.
well, no, I can't, because so Pat Morita is sent to the United States to recover a stolen prototype that
Mhm.
this corporate. He's in the corporate espionage division of the Tokyo Police. That's his job,
Yeah.
because corporate espionage is very, very, very rampant in Japan. Um, so,
And here, according to this movie.
yeah, well, and he gets sent to Detroit to follow this guy to bring back this prototype.
Mhm.
Because apparently, if a company in Japan does well, that means that the entire country has to backswell against every single Japanese company?
They bring this up.
Yes. No, they talk about this.
Yeah, they bring this up.
It's like, oh, no, you have to bring that back because the U.S. is our competitor. It's like, there's not a national economy that is overseen by the police in Japan. That's not how this works. Now, I get them coming to you because the prototype was stolen and was going to be sold illegally to another company. That's a problem.
And it's this company named, is it Jared?
I
This
thought
this
that was
car.
just the guy's name.
The guy, it's the CEO of the company who looks like Mike Pence, by the way.
Yes, yes, he does.
And he's a man. The poor man was born without a spine, but he's under the thumb of this corporate thug played by Chris Sarandon, who looks like John Stossel. I'm not kidding.
He does. Tonight on John Stossel Reports, why is corporate espionage so difficult?
And his henchmen are 2 of the scariest actors you've ever seen in your life. Played by Tom Noonan, the villain from RoboCop 2,
Yeah.
and Randall Tex Cobb, the villain in everything else.
Yes, everything.
Randall Tex Cobb made a career playing this character.
Pretty much. Yeah.
And somehow was not one of the jocks in Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah. But he was damn good at his job.
Yeah. I mean, if you can find what you're good at,
Yeah.
you know.
Right. So yeah, so that's how we get introduced to our 2 lead characters.
This is
Now-
how we establish all of the characters.
Right. And poor Natsuo, it doesn't seem like his police investigator likes him.
Mhm.
Like his police chief likes him. So why he's being given this assignment to leave the country, this very important, apparently, national security situation,
Mhm.
why give it to a guy that you clearly don't think is good enough to do this job?
Yet why are you sending him
Like,
all
at
the way to the
least-
other side of the world?
At least when they got around to Rush Hour, they had figured out that they had to make him either really, really good at his job, or inexorably linked because the ambassador. My family loves the Rush Hour movies, so I've had this.
2 of the 5.
No, they've seen all 3. We have all 3 of them. I think they like all 3 of them, but they are much more. They like it a lot more than I do, and so I've had to watch them a few more times than I.
It's the third one I can't bear. It's really the third one I can't bear because I know this is going to be a loaded statement, but watching Roman Polanski debase himself in this way is really hard to sit through. It just, I can't take it. Yeah.
But you know, I don't get it. I don't get why he's there. I don't get why there was not a collaboration between the police services to do this, like to say, hey, here's this cop and he's investigating. No, they have to racistly arrest him, racistly process him.
Oh, he goes into that. He goes into he goes into that police station. I mean, they are throwing the J word all over the place, and it's just there is a cop. He is closed up in an office with a cop who keeps asking him his name. It's like, what is your name? Honda, Mitsubishi, Sushi, and the look on his face when he's saying this
Yeah.
looks like he wants to punch this man through the door.
Right, and it's he's like, yeah, I speak a little of your language, and I'm like, this is awful. This is bad, and the funnier part to that is all he has to say is that he's an inspector, a detective,
Yeah. Which he does.
which he does, but he is immediately believed without
Yeah, they don't
documentation.
check up on this at all.
I mean, they call over to the precinct, but the chief there, who obviously spoke English because he knew what Pat Morita was saying. They said, how's your English? And he said, I'd rather go to Hawaii than Detroit. And he gets mad, and he's like, oh, but he said he'd be honored to take the court case. Yet
makes no
he does
sense.
not speak a word of English to them when they call to make sure that he's a police officer.
There would have been somebody.
There should have been an international liaison that did something to say he's coming and we know about him.
And they would have met him at the airport.
And they would have
Picked
done
him up.
everything to push him away from doing anything if they really didn't want him doing anything.
But the way it plays out in this movie is they tell him you need to go to Detroit and do this. They don't call anybody. They don't tell anybody. He just gets on a commercial flight, goes to Detroit.
And they say don't tell anyone about this. Like they basically want him to slip in and slip out.
Yeah.
Like,
none of this makes any sense.
no, not it doesn't make a lick of sense. And and the only reason now that Jay Leno is pulled into this.
Every time you say Jay Leno, I'm like,
The reason he's pulled into this is because an old friend of his. Now, this connection is set up so loosely at the beginning, where they just basically say, hey, your friend got killed at the Gardner junkyard, right?
said your friend was shot. And he's like, shot?
He's not even a cop anymore. He's been 20 years on the force, and he never had to shoot anybody, and he's a garden joke, and he gets killed.
Why does your Jay Leno sound? Why does your
He
Jay
sounds
Leno sound like Ed Wynn?
Yeah, he does sound like Ed Wynn, but they're the same person to me, really, in a lot of ways.
So your friend was shot. Shot?
Yeah. So with a unique rocket gun that was discontinued in 1972, that
Rocket
is also
gun.
you're right, that doesn't leave shell casings, but the movie's not about that either. So
The movie's not about a whole lot of things.
there is this rare weapon that is introduced that you would assume would be some sort of calling card for this villain that you know, or something. No, it's just a guy that has more guns than the entirety of I don't know, spermatozoa in the world. Like he's got a gun for every molecule that exists.
What is with this guy that well, they don't kill him, but there's a guy at the beginning who just shows up somewhere. He's this older Asian man. He just shows up somewhere, and he's supposed to show up with the prototype.
Right, and they're going to torture him for the prototype, even though he just didn't bring it with him as a safety precaution. Because really, they just take it from him and kill him. They don't have to pay him.
So they hang him by a hook by his feet.
Right.
And he has a heart attack.
He has a heart attack and dies because he's afraid of it. And they're like, why would you not assume that would happen? He's just a guy. An old guy at that. I mean, you know, these guys are like, are they just under the assumption that everybody faces a loaded gun every day? Just like them, and that everybody's just accustomed to this? This is normal?
But I gotta ask you this, because I want to get this out of the way. Jay Leno, this is, I think, 3 years before The Tonight Show.
Yeah.
And it's apparent that the reason that they hired he and Pat Morita, they're both stand-up comics. And they were hired because they were comedians and they wanted to make an action comedy. Pat Morita, maybe I get casting.
Yeah.
But I'm not really sure why Jay Leno. He's not terrible in the movie. I'll say this. He's not terrible in the movie. He's being aggressively himself.
Yeah.
He's very aggressively Jay Leno. But he's not that I want him to go away. He's not so terrible in this movie that I want him to be gone. He just is so out of place. And maybe that has something to do with his tenure on The Tonight Show. I don't know. It looks weird.
Well, because he's not an action type of comedian.
Right.
You know, there are some that are funny and high and tense situations that, you know, they can do a one-liner and zing and diffuse some situations and whatnot.
Eddie Murphy.
Right, exactly.
I mean, if you think about it, Bruce Willis wasn't known for action. He was known for comedy.
Right.
But he made a good transition.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't look at Jay Leno and think, well, action comedy. You don't... You just don't look at it and think...
No, you look at him and think comedy.
Yeah.
Especially because he leads with his chin.
Right.
He's got more face than Robert Zadar.
You just stole my joke. But I'll be honest with you, I didn't watch that much of him on The Tonight Show because I was more or less indifferent to it. I watched the Tonight Show when there was a guest I was interested in.
Well, yeah, I mean, David Letterman was the superior talk show host at the time.
And the one that Johnny had wanted for The Tonight Show.
Well, yeah, because he was better at it. But anyway, you say he's not terrible. I beg to differ.
He's just ordinary.
His line delivery, it tends to be cringeworthy. The fact that he waits about 2 beats too long for every joke.
I'm gonna bust your ass.
Yeah. There are moments where his character seems like he's a good cop, and then there are moments where he's like Roger Thornhill in North by Northwest, just blundering along until he gets something that can work for him. Like, I don't know what to make of the character. There's obviously an ulcer-ridden police captain that you know. Give me your,
the guy from The Office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give me your guns and your you know, your badge.
Oh, the pissed off police captain. God, that cliche is just. Yeah, this movie.
But his partner's Ernie Hudson.
Yeah, his partner's Ernie Hudson, and somebody calls him Winston.
Actually, I noticed that.
It's like the kid that looks.
The person that they're going after in that building is named Winston, but it lines up a little too well.
Yeah, that kid that looks like he looted a Foot Locker. He's got like 139 boxes.
He's got to pay me. He bought $200 worth of cookies. Can't you just take him until after I get my money? And they're like, no, here.
I'll give you $40.
Here's $40. That's more than enough. No, he said $200. $40 does not equal $200. That's how Detroit got into the money problems it is in the first place.
Here, I owe you 200. I'll give you 40. Here,
Okay, that's even. We're even.
you owe me $20 million. Here's $4 million. You know?
All right, we'll call that even. Thanks, guys.
Yes.
I mean,
wow.
This movie, this is about 65 different movies all together. It depends on what
Occasionally-
scene you're in. Each new scene feels like it's a new movie gonna start.
Yeah. Yeah.
And every new movie that's gonna start has its own plot.
There's a barroom brawl in this movie, which should surprise no one. There's a barroom brawl in this movie, which is followed by a scene of wild racism, where Pat Morita is accosted by a bunch of bar patrons who don't like the Japanese because of the economic problems.
I want to give them credit for trying in this scene.
For steering in that direction, but the fact that it turns into a barroom brawl is just
You're right. They try to make a funny scene wherein patrons of a tough-looking bar confront Pat Morita, and instead of calling him all kinds of, racist names or anything, they're asking him to personally explain Japanese economic policy.
Explain, because he represents apparently all of Japan.
Right, because apparently they think every Japanese person works in is the Japanese economic minister.
Right.
Like, they don't know what he does. He could have been a mechanic.
He could have been a gardener, for all
Right.
they know. I mean, he could have been anything.
I don't even know if he speaks. I think he just walked in there. He could have been a Japanese American. He could have been from San Francisco, never set foot in Japan in his entire life.
I come from Sacramento.
Yeah,
you know?
like dude, I grew up in Oklahoma. I don't know what to tell you.
Or end up like Henry Cho with a Southern accent.
You're right.
But a fight breaks out. There's a barroom brawl set to this song that does not sound like it should be set to a barroom brawl. It sounds like it should be set to a movie where a cop moves to a beach community.
Right,
And
but
you get the montage of the beach, with all the pretty girls on roller skates.
but the music perfectly fits the speed and care given to the fight, which looks like it was choreographed by an 8-year-old's father trying to do some sort of a half-assed video project for his kid.
There is a scene, I am not kidding you, there is a scene where Pat Morita is and Jay Leno are in the foreground, and in the background, two guys are beating each other up.
Well, quote unquote.
It looks like two guys hitting. It looks like two kids in the swimming pool hitting each other with the noodle.
It looks like the two guys in the background of every massive battle sequence that are just standing there going clink, 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 and not putting anything into it, and they're always the ones that are right in the middle of the frame.
Dead center. Yeah. It's ridiculous. And one of them is an old guy who, if there is any impact, really can take a punch.
Yeah. So, yeah, I want to give them credit for trying to go the route of let's engage this person on an intellectual level and not just call him mindless racist things. But the fact that they assume that you would know the intricacies of Japanese trade policy, I give them marks for trying.
I know Detroit has a lot of problems. Okay, this man is not your problem.
No. I mean, this... So...
Can I ask you a question, though?
Oh, sure.
There's a scene where Jay Leno goes into... The movie makes massive gaps in logic where you're sitting there asking questions. There's a scene where he breaks into Jared's office to get information. The security guards, before he gets to the gate, let a man go by on a lawnmower. But they stop him.
Well, yeah.
But they stop Jay Leno. It's like they let the guy on the lawnmower's fine. Okay, yeah, go ahead. But they stop the police officer.
Right.
And question him. I don't even get it.
Well, they needed a reason to have two other guys shtick their way through. Oh, we're security guards, but we just weren't meant to be cops because the guy had it in for us at the civil servants exam because they both failed the civil servants exam to become police officers.
Well, no shit. They let the guy through on a lawnmower. This is at night in a closed office.
Yeah.
And there's a gate out front. And the guy on the lawnmower just goes through they just bypass, just wave him on through.
The lobby.
But yeah.
The lobby.
But Jay Leno gets stopped and questioned.
Yeah.
And has to talk his way out of it. I never figured out why he was on a lawnmower. I never figured out how he got in there. What in the world?
The man directed Cujo. Give him a break. He doesn't know what he's doing. He really doesn't know what he's doing. None of this makes sense. And every scene that looks like it's actually going to help move the story forward and make sense.
Yeah.
Every time there's a scene like that, it cuts off halfway through and you don't get the payoff for whatever they were setting up. And you don't get the information that you needed. You don't get anything from the scene that would have made it worthwhile. The end of the movie is
like that. Yeah, the end of the movie is like that.
Well, yeah, it's like they took what they had for the movie, and they said, you know what, let's take the running time that we have built up at the end here, and let's make other parts of it longer,
Hmm.
and let's just hurry up to the end.
Because the ending fight scene ends, and then immediately cuts to Jay Leno and Pat Morita at the airport, and Pat Morita's going home. It's like, okay, wait a minute, we missed a payoff of everything.
Of everything.
Of everything.
There's, it's.
I may have an explanation for this. Because
Aside
Pat
from poor
Morita,
editing.
Pat Morita was on Jay Leno, was on the Tonight Show some years later, and they were talking about this movie. And halfway through, the money ran out. So
Well, let's not forget, this is Dino De Laurentiis production.
Right. So that's par for the course.
This is the second one that we're doing. It was produced a year before Raw Deal, but released many years after Raw Deal.
Right. Well, they ran out of money, and there was no time to really get it finished, to get the editing finished. So that's why there are scenes that are never finished. There are plots that are picked up and never finished. That's why certain things happen and they're never explained, because this movie was never allowed to be finished. The only reason that it ever got released was because Jay Leno went on the Tonight Show.
Right.
And they needed to market something.
Right. Well, that, and they were like, oh, well, he's at his single highest point of popularity.
Right.
This is the only time this is going to make a dime.
And this is all we have.
Right.
I mean, and that's the only reason this movie ever saw the light of day.
Right. It's like it's like the only reason the Adrian Brody movie Love the Hard Way got any kind of release was because of The Pianist.
Right.
Because it's not worth it.
I love it when they do that. When somebody becomes super popular, and they'll pull out of mothballs just anything that they can find. I will never forget, there was when Nicole Kidman became popular, they pulled out this Australian comedy. It was a really, really wonderful movie called Flirting.
Mm-hmm.
And Nicole Kidman is in that movie for about 6 minutes. But on the box cover, she's like...
Actually, I think the crowning achievement of that, for me, was Jennifer Aniston, when she got super popular.
Yeah.
And all you could find was just her standing full front and center on a box for Leprechaun 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't think she's a main character. I think she's like kind of in it. It's like everybody trying to say that California's a Brad Pitt movie when he's on the couch for 2.5 minutes. Like,
No, he's in California. He plays the villain, but I remember there was a movie called Dead Heat on Merry-Go-Round. Harrison Ford plays a messenger. He is in the movie for about as long as it takes me to finish this sentence. And when they did a video release, they said starring Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
And he's no more in that movie than...
That would be like trying to say that Apocalypse Now starred Harrison
Ford. I really like it when they when they try to sell it. They're so desperate to sell it. They'll sell something on somebody's success, starring Tom Hanks's brother.
Yeah.
You know.
Why do you think his problematic son gets work? Not Colin Hanks, the one that decides to go on red carpets and do Jamaican patois and their problematic one that I'm sure every time they see an announcement they go,
Yeah. Video marketing, let me tell you something. Video marketing is fascinating. I'll never forget there was I think it was around 1980, there was a movie, I can't remember the name of it, but it was about a group of kids who were really good at karate. And I can't remember the name of it, but about 5 years later, after the Karate Kid had become a huge hit, it was suddenly released as Karate Kids USA. More action than the Karate Kid. You know?
hey, look, and then they followed that with what was it? That strip mall karate movie, Three Ninjas.
3 Ninjas, yeah. Yeah.
Strip mall karate dojo.
There was a Chuck Norris movie like that called Sidekicks.
I
And it
remember
was-
that one.
Yeah. The villain was Joe Piscopo.
Yeah, that one. I saw that one. That's
It's just, the marketing is fascinating. I remember right after Harry Potter became popular, you would go to Toys R Us, and they had this knockoff, and it had a wand, it had a cauldron, it had little glasses, and it was called Magical Wizarding Boy Kit. And it had a letter to your wizarding school. And it was called Wizarding School. Just like just diverting. Just skirting a lawsuit, you know.
well, you get into movies like this, and you find out where they get the ideas for drugstore toys.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
the corpse instead of GI Joe.
The stuff that you get, the stuff that lazy people get on the way to the birthday party.
Why didn't you tell me we had this birthday party today? Ah, hell.
You got to stop by CVS, you know.
And then you've got to stop by the next CVS because you realize you forgot the bag.
Have you ever seen the toy section in any CVS? It is the saddest thing you've ever seen.
It is.
It's a mixture of toys no child wants, mixed with toys from a brand line that has long passed.
Oh yes. These are the toys that you don't even see in Walmart because they just don't sell. They all get sent back.
It's the kind of crap you see selling at the grocery store. You know, the toy section of the grocery store.
That's the level of creativity that we're dealing with. They probably made Collision Course action figures and they wound up in Walgreens or something. For probably.
Let me tell you something. When Jay Leno went on the Tonight Show, you know this movie came up.
Oh, yeah.
You know this movie came up. I remember he had Letterman on the show, and Letterman brought this up.
Of course he did.
And he never appeared on the show again. I want to talk about this because I'll never get another chance to talk about this. When he went on the Tonight Show, he was not Johnny's choice to succeed him. Letterman was his choice to succeed him. But then CBS drove a dump truck full of money up to Letterman's house, and he took the job there. So they gave it to Jay Leno. I will never forget this, and I can't remember how far into his tenure it was, that all of a sudden NBC fell in love with Conan O'Brien. And you may remember this.
Mm-hmm.
They gave Conan O'Brien the Tonight Show, but they didn't want to get rid of Jay Leno. So they gave Jay Leno a show the Jay Leno show that took place in the 9 o'clock slot every night.
10 o'clock.
Was it 10 o'clock?
Yeah.
Well, 9 o'clock where I am.
Oh, yeah.
So they were trying to accommodate both of them. And the ratings for The Tonight Show under Conan O'Brien sank like a stone.
Well, the trouble here, they tried to do the right thing and have the successor be the person that's the next show. You know,
Right.
the late night show. Unfortunately, they
But
did
apparently
this.
he had left his own show. Apparently he had left late night.
Well, yeah. They gave him the Tonight Show. The problem was they told Jay Leno, "Okay, you're done."
Mm-hmm.
They didn't let him go, "I want to retire," like
Yeah.
like Carson did. If they would have waited him out and done that transition with Conan, it would have been an easier transition. But instead, it made headlines the way it did in the 90s between Leno and Letterman,
Right.
and it ended up being a debacle. It ended up giving us the shortest term hosting the Tonight Show, and it's sad because they never gave him the opportunity to develop his show.
Right.
Because if you watch his old show, it was as insane as David Letterman's old show.
Right.
So
He brought his own brand of comedy.
right, and so but adapting that to an earlier time slot where people actually watch
Mhm.
was very difficult for Conan, and it took a little while.
Right.
And they
And
just
he had a
decided,
niche.
nope, let's just get rid of him. Let's bring Jay Leno back, and then they gave it to Jimmy Fallon, and Jimmy Fallon ruined the country.
Well, and Conan has a niche audience. He has his fans.
I love Conan O'Brien.
I don't.
I was in high school. I remember when I watched the last 2 episodes of The Tonight Show live.
I watched the whole thing because there weren't that many.
I would.
It wasn't all that long.
I would watch. I would stay up, and I got into Conan, and just fell for his insanity.
See, Conan's show was for somebody that was your age at that time.
Yes.
It was for younger people.
Yes.
People my age waffled between Letterman and Leno. Where I think Dave worked better as an interviewer than as a monologuist. Jay always seemed uncomfortable with the interviews for me.
Well, because Jay Leno was a stand-up comic, and
Right.
Letterman was a news anchor.
Right.
I mean, they just he got his degree in journalism, and Jay
Wasn't he a
Leno-
weatherman?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And
Well-
his Letterman's interview with George W. Bush remains the greatest interview of the 2000 elections.
Have you seen his interview with Barack Obama?
Yes.
Yeah. You've seen his new show?
Yeah. A few
I
episodes.
really like his new show.
Yeah.
But if you watch it's on Netflix. If you watch the episodes in a row, it'll throw you off.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm sitting there and I'm watching a really in-depth interview with Malala.
Yeah.
I can't pronounce her last name, but I'm watching a really in-depth interview with Malala. And it's immediately followed by an interview with Howard Stern. That'll spin your head off.
That's jarring. That's a little jarring.
The one interview that he did that I did not expect to really find engaging was he did an interview with Kim Kardashian. And that was really interesting because she opened that interview by talking about what happened at home when the whole OJ thing happened. Because her dad was in the music industry, and he left. He reinstated his law degree to be on OJ's defense team.
Yeah.
And her mother was very good friends with Nicole. So she knew he did it. So there was this war at home.
Yeah.
And the kids, she was like 13 at the time, the kids were trying to keep out of the middle of it. Where there was this, her mother is out on the back porch, just kind of stewing while her dad is in the kitchen with Johnny Cochran and F. Lee Bailey and Bob Shapiro. She said, so the tension, you could cut it with a knife. That kind of interview is what I love. I love those insights, that kind of stuff, which is why I like his new show.
Leno never had that.
Leno never had that.
Leno was
Well, he was never able to build that because that show that he briefly had at 9 o'clock or at 10 o'clock, that's kind of what it was. It was just two chairs and him talking to somebody. It was just an
interview situation, and he relied more on guests kind of saying something crazy and then being able to laugh about it. So that you didn't really have to talk about anything specifically.
Right.
His interview style is let me lob them a few softballs that we worked out ahead of time that leads into their stand-up routine. Or I don't know if you've ever noticed this. I've always watched a lot of stand-up.
I do too.
And if you see a comedian on Jay Leno, he'll give them this setup, and then they'll start telling this hilarious story.
Yeah.
And it's great until you realize that is literally word for word from their comedy routine, from one of their bits. That they were like, okay, well, what bits do you want to do from your thing? All right, I'll set you up for this one. It's like it's so scripted, and it got really annoying to me.
He was trying to let them sell themselves let them sell their material. Johnny did that. I think that's part of what Leno was trying to do.
Not in a good, not
in a prompting way.
Right, like Leno. And I could always tell when Carson had worked something out ahead of time. Too. The tone always changes, and they give more of a line read than an actual question asked.
Yeah.
But that was 60% of Jay Leno's interviewing technique.
Right.
And that's where the problem is.
Well, Johnny Carson was best at not prompting the interviewee, not prompting the guest to do something, just letting them come on, like Rickles would come on.
Oh, well.
You didn't have to do anything for Rickles to do something. You just let Rickles be him.
Right.
Siskel and Ebert were that way because he would come on and he would talk to them for a minute, and then Siskel and Ebert would start squabbling about something.
Right, they would just start fighting with each other.
And forget about him.
Well, yeah.
Just
the thing is, and I think that Leno was obviously handcuffed by the stars of his time, and continued, the talk show hosts continue to be, because back then, an entertainer had to be an entertainer.
Right.
You had to be a fully well-rounded. Most of them did stage shows. They were actors,
Sing,
but they
dance,
would do stage
comedy,
shows and do all this stuff. And they're veteran performers across multiple media platforms. But now that is not the case.
No.
You get somebody who might have gotten famous on YouTube,
Yeah.
and they don't know
Or a
how,
reality show.
right, they don't know how to sit there and banter. They don't know. It's not something that they've ever learned how to do. They're not trained actors. They don't know how to do it. So you just kind of get these leaden interviews that are only marginally better than the David Letterman Madonna interview. That
Yeah.
was the single worst interview ever committed to film.
That is painful to watch.
It's bad. It's bad. And
What's really bad,
he is trying so hard.
and I think they all fall in Johnny's shadow, because by the time we came along, Johnny was so lionized in the industry that he could get anybody. I mean, you go on YouTube, you see interviews with him with Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra and Bob Hope. These are the giants of the entertainment industry.
Right.
And they would come on just because it was Johnny Carson.
Mm-hmm.
You would have a young comedian, and I'm talking about, Jerry Seinfeld or Drew Carey or Jay Leno.
Yeah.
They would come on, or Ellen.
Yeah.
And they would come on the show, and they would do their set, and as soon as their set was over, they would look to the chair, and if Johnny was waving you over, that was an anointing.
Yeah. That was
saying,
you did a good job. You are now going to become one of the great comedians.
Right. That lionized personality that Johnny had. Nobody will ever have that.
Well, but Leno had that, and Letterman had that by the end too. Letterman had a
in their own way.
Letterman had a foot up going in anyway, but yeah, they all develop their core guests that are just like, yes, I'm so much of a fan of you that I want to help you be on this show if you need me.
Right.
Like Abe Vigoda on the first few years of Conan O'Brien's show.
Or Mr. T.
Yeah.
See, the only problem is I never got Conan O'Brien's show. To me, it was more gimmicks. Than it was anything else.
It was all surrealist.
And I think that's what pushed a lot of older people away.
Oh, yeah. But
his show is still like that.
Well, he's ending it. He's going to HBO Max now.
He's ending it, yeah.
He's going to HBO Max now. But I'll say this about Collision Course. It should have stayed on the shelf. It should have stayed on the shelf. This is horrifyingly racist.
I have more fun talking about talk show hosts than I did talking about this movie.
Well, we were distracting ourselves. We were because
it's the only time I'll ever get to talk about that.
And,
it's a subject that interests me.
The movie is just god awful. It's racist. It doesn't make any sense.
There are musical cues that sound like they're going to introduce Jay's guests.
Right, and all of it sounds like it was done on like the director's little brother's Casio demo button. Like it's really, really bad music, and it's everything. Well, it's everything you would expect from a Dino De Laurentiis movie from the 80s, which is exactly what we did last week. So.
Well, you have to know, kids, if you don't know, Dino De Laurentiis was this Italian movie producer. I think he had a giant success with the remake of King Kong. And everything he tried to do after that He had a handful of successes over his, 60 years in film before he died. He had 2 or 3 big successes. They were enough for his name to just be synonymous with making movies. He got an Oscar.
Yeah.
An honorary Oscar. His biggest success, his only really huge success, was in helping Kurt Russell transition from child star to
Right.
to an adult actor.
Right.
And that's about it. Because the movies that he made were garbage.
Always. Always.
Including the last two that we've talked about.
Well, yeah. There have been a couple where somehow he had gotten the rights to something that was going to be good, and he leveraged that into getting his name on better movies that he had nothing to do with making them.
Aren't you glad he didn't get he didn't get financing for Total Recall?
Yes.
I really am glad because I like that movie.
Yeah, that's a decent picture. So we go from that. We go from Collision Course, or Rush Hour -1.
Mhm.
What have we got?
His best film, Daniel De Laurentiis' best film, was 1980. Was Flash Gordon.
Yeah.
That was the movie he produced,
Yep.
and that was a great movie.
That was the one. That was the
That
one
was a
that
great-
everybody was like, "Okay, we'll keep doing your movies. We'll keep giving."
That
you
was a
money."
great pile of trash.
Yes, it was. So next week,
Oh,
we
shit.
have a fifth week of Turkey Month. That sometimes when we have these fifth weeks, we'll do a mutual pick where we're both like, hey, I wanted to talk about this, and you've wanted to talk about this. Let's talk about this here. That's not what we have coming up.
You know, sometimes earthquakes happen. There are tornadoes, hurricanes, floods. They just happen. Bad things, terrible things happen in the world, and then Kirk Cameron gets to make a movie, and I lump them all together because these things should.
All of these things. All of these things are evidence to me that there's not a God controlling everything. Because if there were a merciful God, we would not have had Saving Christmas.
Saving Christmas, which is our swan song. It's both our swan song to Turkey Month and also our entry into the Christmas holiday. This is one of the most horrific pieces of crap I've ever seen in my
A
life.
full eighth of this film is outtakes.
Yes. Basically, Kirk Cameron, star of Growing Pains, became a born-again Christian and lost his mind.
Decides to inflict a lot of pains on us now.
Yes. Including this movie.
Oh.
I actually want people to see this.
Well, bear in mind,
Because-
folks, this was produced by Liberty University, Jerry
Yes.
Falwell's fake university, that has been in the news recently because Jerry Falwell Jr. and his wife were having a threesome with a pool boy. Or she was just sleeping with the pool boy, but he knew about it, probably because he might have also been sleeping with a boy and they didn't want to talk about it. I don't know. But Liberty University, folks, it's not real.
Yeah.
I have a cousin who graduated from there.
Basically, it's a full 90 minutes of Kirk Cameron
Somehow.
whining about Christmas.
But only an hour of that has anything to do with whatever story they've devised.
And it's the most oddly constructed. This is worse constructed than Star Trek V.
Most of
I
this
can
movie
say-
takes place with two guys in a van.
Right.
Now, put that together. Your
Yeah.
born-again Christian movie, and most of it takes place with two guys in a van in the in the driveway.
Yeah. We should have done that in June.
Yeah. That would have turned some heads. Anyway,
But,
so we have that before we go into our Christmas extravaganzas, which for me has been finalized.
He laughs.
Yes, because the first week we're doing Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. That's my first pick, because it's a damn good movie, and it's the best movie that John Hughes made.
Yeah. And the best movie that John Candy was in.
Yes, in my personal opinion, it is.
It is a John Hughes movie with a capital J. I mean, my God.
Oh yeah.
heartwarming element.
But it's a wonderful film. It's a wonderful.
It's a wonderful film.
And it's one of the few John Hughes movies that I like. So we're gonna go with that. Yes, folks. We're probably not gonna talk about The Breakfast Club because he likes it, and so the next week we're gonna be doing. We're just gonna avoid The Breakfast Club altogether here. We're doing a medley of classic.
We do an annual medley. Last year we did modern day classics, movies that people like. This year we're doing some golden era classics. We're talking about, let's see, I believe it was Miracle on 34th Street, and I know Meet Me in St. Louis, and two others that I have not nailed down yet.
And we're gonna go from that to a more typically me pick. Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, which is
great film,
homoerotica for the holidays.
Starring David Bowie.
Yes. So it's a really good movie. And nobody dies of cancer, folks.
Nobody died of cancer, and it doesn't come from Finland.
Right. So it's not Scandinavian, and it is not now. It does deal with some pretty terrible things.
Yeah. Well, it takes place in war.
Yeah, in a World War II POW camp, Japanese POW camp. But that's the more up my alley pick, I think.
Yeah.
And then I don't think we have a final one for the year.
I don't have one yet.
Yeah. So
I'm working on it.
So we're still plotting and planning, but we've made it through. We've got one more leg to limp through Turkey Month, and it's a doozy.
It's a doozy. Wow.
Watch that first step. It's a doozy.
Yeah.
I think that wraps it up here for us. You can find all of our back episodes at the podbaydorspodcast.wordpress.com. You can listen to us on iTunes and YouTube. Hit the like, subscribe, and notifications button so that you know when we get a new episode. Follow us on Twitter at pod_bay. We also tweet out every time we've got a new episode. And you can take a trip over to Patreon at pod_bay as well, and see if you might be able to pitch a couple pennies in, let us keep doing what we're doing. We thank you so very much for joining us, and the Pod Bay doors are now closed.
The mission has been completed.
I'm overloaded, blowing the fuse. Got myself some energy, I got to use it. Surging through the socket, that switch. Electromagnetism, electromagnetic child. And I'm in my electric vibratory body. Living you in shock. Give me Thank you.